Have you ever heard of a politician so ridiculous, so out of touch, that you thought, you know what, a horse could probably do a better job? Well, you're not the first person to have that thought. In fact, a Roman emperor might have beaten you to it by about 2,000 years. Today, we're re-diving into one of the most bizarre and scandalous stories from ancient Rome. The tale of Emperor Caligula and his beloved horse, Incitatus. Did Caligula really try to make his horse a consul, the highest political office in the Roman Republic? Or is this just a smear campaign that has lasted for millennia? Let's saddle up and find out. To understand this story, we first need to understand the man at the center of it, Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus, better known by his childhood nickname Caligula, which means little boot. He became emperor in 37 AD, and initially, Rome celebrated his predecessor Tiberius was old, paranoid, and deeply unpopular. Caligula was young, charismatic, and the son of the beloved General Germanicus. The first few months of his reign were like a honeymoon period. He freed political prisoners, abolished unpopular taxes, and hosted lavish public games. The people of Rome adored him. But then, something changed. About 7 months into his rule, Caligula fell gravely ill. When he recovered, he was a different man. The once promising young emperor became erratic, cruel, and tyrannical. He executed political rivals, family members, and even random citizens on a whim. He squandered the Roman treasury on extravagant projects, like a 2-mile-long floating bridge across the Bay of Naples, just so he could ride his horse across it. He demanded to be worshipped as a living god, erecting temples and statues to himself throughout the empire. It's in this context of absolute power and apparent madness that the story of his horse, Incitatus, emerges. Incitatus wasn't just any horse. His name means swift, or at a gallop, and he was a prized chariot racer from Hispania. Caligula was obsessed with him. According to ancient sources, Incitatus lived a life of luxury that most Roman citizens could only dream of. He had a stable made of marble, a manger of ivory, and he was fed oats mixed with gold flakes. He wore a collar of precious jewels and purple blankets, the color reserved for the emperor himself. He even had a team of servants dedicated solely to his care. Before Rhasis, Caligula would reportedly station soldiers in the neighborhood to enforce absolute silence, ensuring Incitatus got a good night's sleep. But this opulent lifestyle was just the beginning. The real scandal, the story that has echoed through history, comes from the Roman historian Suetonius. Writing about 80 years after Caligula's death, Suetonius claims that Caligula loved his horse so much that he planned to make him a consul. Think about that for a second. The consulship was the pinnacle of a Roman political career. It was a position held by figures like Julius Caesar and Cicero. Appointing a horse to this office would have been the ultimate insult to the Roman Senate and the entire political establishment. But wait, it gets even crazier. Cassius Dio, another historian writing even later, adds more details. He claims Caligula would invite Incitatus to dine with him, serving the horse golden barley and wine in a golden goblet. He even made the horse a priest in his own divine cult. The image is almost comical. A horse draped in finery, sitting at the imperial dining table while senators bow and scrape. So, did it actually happen? Did Consul Incitatus ever take office? The short answer is no. Caligula was assassinated in 41 AD by his own Praetorian Guard before he could ever follow through on this alleged plan. But the more important question is, did he ever seriously intend to do it in the first place? This is where historians are divided. There are a few main theories. The first theory is that Caligula was genuinely insane. After his illness, his mind snapped, and he was capable of any bizarre and irrational act. For those who believe this, making his horse a consul was just one more symptom of a deeply disturbed mind, a man who had lost all touch with reality. His actions were not logical. They were the whims of a mad tyrant. This is the most popular version of the story, the one that paints Caligula as a lunatic emperor. But there's a second, more intriguing theory. What if Caligula wasn't mad at all, but was actually a brilliant political satirist? In this view, the plan to appoint Incitatus was a calculated act of political theater. Caligula despised the Senate. He saw them as sycophantic, corrupt, and useless. By suggesting his horse could do their job, he was delivering the ultimate political commentary. He was saying, "You are all so worthless and predictable that even my horse could perform your duties. The office of consul has become so meaningless that an animal could hold it." It was a power move, a way to humiliate his political opponents and show them just how little he valued them and their traditions. He was essentially trolling the entire Roman political system. This interpretation paints a very different picture of Caligula. Not as a madman, but as a cynical and sharp-witted autocrat who understood the power of symbolism. By elevating his horse, he was lowering the status of the senators. He was demonstrating that their positions were not earned through merit, but were granted by his whim alone. If he could make a man a consul, why not a horse? It was a dark, twisted joke, but a joke with a very clear political message. His power was absolute. There's evidence to support this view. Ancient sources tell us Caligula often mocked the senators, forcing them to run for miles behind his chariot or making them stand as servants during his banquets. The Incitatus affair would have been perfectly in line with this pattern of humiliation. It wasn't about the horse. It was about the men who would be forced to serve alongside a horse. So which version is true? The madman or the master manipulator? The truth is, we'll probably never know for sure. The main sources we have, Suetonius and Cassius Dio, were writing long after Caligula's death. They were also part of the senatorial class that Caligula so openly despised. They had every reason to portray him in the worst possible light, to exaggerate his eccentricities and paint him as a monster to justify his assassination. Stories of madness and excess were a common way for Roman historians to discredit unpopular emperors. It's entirely possible that the story of Consul Incitatus was a piece of political propaganda that has been repeated as fact for 2,000 years. Perhaps Caligula simply joked about it once at a dinner party. Maybe he said something like, "Things are so bad, I might as well make Incitatus a consul." And the story grew from there, embellished over time by his enemies. A throwaway line of dark humor could easily have been twisted into a serious plan by historians eager to confirm his insanity. Regardless of Caligula's true intentions, the story of Incitatus has had a long and fascinating afterlife. It's become a timeless symbol of political absurdity and the corruption of power. The term incitatus is sometimes used to refer to a political appointee who is completely unqualified for their role. The story serves as a cautionary tale. When a leader has absolute, unchecked power, the line between reality and satire can become terrifyingly thin. In the end, whether Caligula was insane or just had a very dark sense of humor, his actions created a legend. He forced Rome to confront the idea that its most sacred institutions could be rendered meaningless by the whim of one man. The story of the horse, who was almost a consul, is more than just a weird historical footnote. It's a powerful statement about power, corruption, and the thin veneer of civilization that can be stripped away when a leader believes they are a god. So, what do you think? Was Caligula a deranged lunatic, or was he a political genius using satire as a weapon? Let me know your theories down in the comments. It's a debate that has raged for centuries, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the bizarre side of history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories you won't believe are true. See you next time.